All right. Hello again, Avengers, and welcome to another excited daily vlog. This is Daily Vlog 2025, number 263. There we go. So, today, I should talk about the elephant in the room. His name is Babar. And no. You guys may notice that lighting seems a little bit different. I have a light. It is right there. That normally illuminates that side of my face. Um, I've had that particular light for like a decade, maybe a little bit longer, and it uses a fluorescent bulb. Well, it started kind of flickering today, which I figured, ooh, that's not great. And part of the fluorescent bulb has turned black and dark. And when you turn it on, it glows this dull red. So when I was filming, or when I was running Tears of the Realms this morning, my room, when the light was on, started to smell like ozone. So I figured it was a good idea to just leave it off. I've ordered a replacement bulb for it. It uses a special bulb. So, yeah, as soon as I get that new bulb, I will be able to light myself adequately again. But it won't be here for a few days. So you guys get to deal with half of my face being darker than normal. Hooray. So, the real reason we're talking today. So, a few days ago, I mentioned that I had a problem in one of my TTRPG campaigns. And I asked for some suggestions. Spoiler alert, anyone that plays in my Wednesday night D&D games, stop watching the video because I'm going to be talking about stuff happening in the future. So skip this video, watch the next one. Go watch my interview with what's his I can't even remember there, but Tom and Bodie. I can't. Homie and the Dude. There we go. Go watch my interview with Homie and the Dude. It's really awesome. Um, so, quite a few of you guys were kind enough to give me some feedback, which is wonderful. One of you, for some bizarre reason, would not show up in like the 3 or 4 different places that I normally go to look for my comments. The only way I could find your comment was to go to my notifications because I got a notification that you commented, but it didn't show up on the dashboard. It didn't show up on the video itself. I have no idea why. But anyway, so you guys gave me some ideas, and I've kind of coalesced them into something that I think is kind of cool. So this is the plan. So, um, 2 of the suggestions had kind of similar ideas that I'm going to think about in a different way. I mentioned they're currently in the elemental plane of water, which in my campaign setting is just all water. Not like, air and then an ocean. No, it's just entirely made of water. Um, and the people that live there live in these kind of Gungan like bubble cities. So one of you lovely people recommended, oh, well, what if this thing that they're chasing, oh, by the way, I should finish explaining. They're in the elemental plane of water, and this weird life draining creature just stole the soul of someone that they need to resurrect. And so, in order to resurrect them, they have to go and hunt this creature. There's a little bit more to it, but that's the basics of it. So, one of you guys said, well, what if this creature has been living in one of those cities that died effectively? Like the city was abandoned, and so now it's on the ocean floor or whatever. It's in a place that people normally don't go, and it's this kind of broken, decrepit ghost city, and they have to kind of make their way through it to find this creature. I'm like, that's super super cool. And then another commenter mentioned, oh, wait a minute, what if, like, you know what would be really cool is if the dungeon they went through was like the body of like a giant, like behemoth, Leviathan style creature. And that got me thinking. So, in Avatar, The Last Airbender, one of the things that I thought was really interesting that they visited quite a few different times in the original Sissa series, and then they kind of retconned it in Legend of Korra. But it was the idea that the first benders of each element were certain animals. Like the first the first earthbenders were badger moles, and so humans kind of watched badger moles earthbend, and they kind of imitated them to create earthbending, which actually isn't that far off from how a lot of kung fu styles kind of became what they are. Specifically, the animal kung fu styles is they actually watched these animals and kind of mimicked some of their motions and then translated it into a martial arts style. And then things like dragons were the original firebenders. I think lemur monkeys were the original, or no, sky bison were the original windbenders, and then the moon, because of course, was the original waterbender. So I got to thinking about this idea of kind of an evolution of technology and stuff like that. And so this is my plan. Long ago, in the before times, the elemental kingdoms haven't always been what they are. My basic kind of creation myth, specifically for the four non-Genasi races, excuse me, in each one of the elemental kingdoms, was they are literally manifestations of that primal element that kind of solidified themselves and turned them into sentient, sapient creatures. Like, for example, the elemental plane of fire, there are two native species. There are fire genasi, and the idea behind the genasi in each one of these is effectively humans were one of the first races that kind of appeared in existence, and they went everywhere, and everywhere that they went, because they are humans, the environment changed them and turned them into all the different genasi things, and tieflings and Azamar are kind of the same thing. They were humans that went to hell and heaven, and their progeny eventually developed these demonic or celestial things, and they became a completely new species. So that's where those come from. But the other species, like for the elemental plane of fire, you have fire genasi, and then you also have Warforged, because I like Eberron, I like, robots, and so in my creation myth, the Warforged are literally fire elementals that wanted more to be more physical and to be able to interact with their world, and so they eventually started melting metal and things around them and kind of forging it to themselves so they could interact more with the real world. And through countless generations, eventually now we have Warforged, where their core is technically a fire elemental, but everything else about them is metal. Well, for the elemental plane of water, changelings are the kind of primal manifestation of the fluidity of water. Water elementals and kind of the spirits of water eventually, again, wanted to interact with the world in an easier and better way, and so they started kind of manifesting these bodies, but because they are water, those bodies were very fluid. They were able to change shape and things like that, and so the changelings themselves are, effectively hyper-evolved water elementals. The same is true of the Aarakocra in the elemental plane of wind, and the what are they called? Half giants. I can't remember what they call them in 5th edition, but they're basically earth elementals that decided that they wanted to be able to interact with the world better because rocks can only do so much. So, with the fact that those races kind of evolved over time, how they existed evolved as well. And based on your suggestions, here's my thought. Before they developed the technology to create these bubble cities, the thing that gave them that idea were there were these massive kind of whale-like creatures that, due to their diet and everything, actually generated oxygen inside themselves. And so they kind of created this symbiotic relationship with early changelings. And so the first generation of changelings lived in these living cities. However, there are problems with having your home have an appetite and a mind of its own. And so eventually they started experimenting with artificial replacements for these creatures. And eventually, as they moved to these artificial cities, the race of creatures that they used to use for their cities died out, and that portion of history has kind of been relegated to legend and myth, where changelings are told about the living cities that they used to live in, kind of in the same way that school kids are told about like Greek myths and the things like that. So my thought is, or this is the plan, this creature has found one of the few remaining creatures that used to be a living city, and unlike the rest of its brethren, didn't completely die out. However, it couldn't form a symbiotic relationship with this creature because the creature is purely parasitical. And so this creature, and possibly others like it, basically kind of took over this creature and then use it as their home. And so the players are not only going to have to go to places that no one in the water elemental plane normally goes because they're super dangerous and things like that, but they're going to have to traverse their way through a living city that has been corrupted by these life-stealing, darkness creatures. And so that opens up the third thing. Another player mentioned, looking into what does it actually take to track monsters and the things like that. And that's already something that I've been looking into too. But my thought is that they will get a glimpse of this thing or something that will indicate to them that, holy shit, we actually can't do this on our own. They will have to go look for a guide who specifically specializes in tracking creatures a little like that. Now, I mentioned before, we only have 3 players. I'm trying to get a 4th. I'm reaching out to people that I know that I'm confident would fit in with the group very well. This is not me asking anyone to volunteer to join, because it's not really how I populate my games. But if I can find someone that's interested in joining, I may try to convince them, okay, let's create a character that justifiably could have some sort of an obsession with these somewhat mythical creatures that used to be living cities for the changelings. Doesn't mean you have to actually be able to hunt them or anything. Just that will be part of your character to give the players a reason to bring you with them. So yeah, and then if I can't find a player in time, they'll just find an NPC that does effectively this is the same thing. And then the players themselves will have to go through the process of finding various hints. First of all, discovering exactly what this thing is, because again, none of them are from the elemental plane of water, nor have any of them ever been to the elemental plane of water. So first, they would have to kind of identify, what is this? Because again, most kids think that they're myths. And then they would have to go through after finding enough people to give them information, they'll have to go through the process of figuring out how to track it and all those other things. And I think that will make for a really interesting story arc. So, yeah, what do you guys think? You think this is going to be very cool, or do you think this is an entirely pedantic waste of time? Let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, again, it's all for me today, and I will see you guys next time. All right? Bye-bye.